Peoria's long history has international and patriotic roots, as well as ties to national social justice and equity movements that are being revisited today. Peoria's history also includes many forgotten mysteries, several of which are related to a 19th century Southside cemetery. Who started it and where? How did it disappear without a trace when it was thought in the early 1900s to have several thousand Peorians buried there? Whose remains are still there, and what are its ties to Abraham Lincoln, his Peoria speech, and freedom? Also, why is it so important that a memorial is now planned for this abandoned and destroyed place of earthly rest, to ensure those buried there are forgotten no more? The answers to these questions span 2 centuries. Pioneer Aquila Moffett came to Peoria in 1822 and soon started milling and mining businesses. He served in the 1832 Black Hawk War, and upon his return, built a spacious home on South Adams Street. 3 years later, he received a land grant to develop South Peoria and soon set aside a small burying ground on his homestead for family and friends. After the Civil War, he marked off several acres nearby and called the plat Union Cemetery, intending it for burials of those soldiers. In the 1870s, he sold this and some adjoining land, bordering on both Adams and Griswold Streets, to 2 investors who formed a cemetery association. They included his name on the venture out of respect, not his participation, and then sold shares for a commercial cemetery business which flourished until it was ordered closed by the city in 1905. Without new revenue, the owners abandoned the property, and it soon became an eyesore and dumping ground for the neighboring areas, overrun with weeds, trees, and debris. Minor efforts to save it over the following decades were unsuccessful. Court actions in the 1950s obtained rights to all of the association shares. The gravestones were removed and sold. Then the land was cleared, which disturbed some graves. The property was rezoned to light industrial, parcels were sold off, and businesses were established on the old cemetery lands. It was said at the time that those buried there had been removed to other cemeteries, and some had. But the larger truth would be proven otherwise. The Cemetery Association records were supposedly lost, but research in 2016 discovered old county undertaker reports which spanned the 30 years of Moffatt Cemetery operation. These huge books documented more than 40 years of deaths and burials for all of Peoria, including more than 2,500 individuals buried at Moffatt Cemetery. Subsequent research determined about 200 more burials took place there, as well as about 100 removals to other locations. These numerous old records document that at least 2,600 individuals, now known by name, lie buried yet today under buildings, workyards, and parking lots. Who are these forgotten Peorians? Well, more than 50 are military veterans. While most were Union Civil War soldiers, one was Spanish-American War veteran and one who served in 1792 were also buried there. A special event was held near the cemetery property on Memorial Day 2017 to commemorate their lives and service to our nation. Soon afterwards, it was discovered that Nance Legins-Costley was buried there with her husband and son. Nancy was the first enslaved person Abraham Lincoln helped free when he won a landmark Illinois Supreme Court case on July 23, 1841. This discovery helped complete work by Lincoln historian Carl Adams, formerly of Pekin, in documenting her unrelenting quest for freedom in his book about her life and the efforts of her emancipator. Born into slavery in 1813 in the Illinois Territory, Nancy was the property object of 3 court cases over 15 years, the last of which resulted in her freedom and that of her children, thus finally and formally ending slavery and indentured servitude in Illinois. A video at the Illinois State Historical Society website offers an excellent summary of Nancy's story and the court cases. This 1841 court case doubtlessly had great effect on young lawyer Lincoln and his views toward slavery. 13 years later, in his Peoria speech of October 16, 1854, Lincoln drew the line against slavery when he said, "There can be no moral right in connection with one man's making a slave of another." What an historic statement, expressed right here in Peoria. When Nancy died in 1892, she was living with her daughter Amanda and son-in-law in an apartment upstairs at 226 North Adams Street. That son-in-law, Edward Lewis, was at Juneteenth in Galveston, Texas in 1865, along with his friend Nathan Ashby, who still rests at Moffatt Cemetery, not far off of Adams Street under a storage yard. Nathan is mentioned on the 2017 temporary memorial. More than 2,550 others who are still there were hardworking Peorians, including respected immigrants, African Americans, hundreds of infants, many indigents, and others who also deserve to be remembered. A small group in our community is now engaged in an effort to proudly recognize these forebears by creating a fitting memorial in space dedicated to those who helped build and preserve our region and nation. Freedom and Remembrance Memorial Park will be located on the corner of Adams and Griswold Streets near the old cemetery grounds. Stone elements in the round will commemorate the pioneer Aquila Moffett, the 50 veterans, Nancy and Abe together on a centerpiece, the more than 2,550 named others who are there, and finally, the uncountable unknowns, who in 1903 were buried there in a mass grave after their remains were disturbed and then removed in 46 soap boxes from Peoria's first city cemetery when installing a sewer line along Lincoln Avenue. The memorial area will also include an official Illinois State Historical Society marker, storyboards as needed, and appropriate flags and lighting. An opportunity is at hand to gather our community and establish a heritage memorial to commemorate these long unremembered Peorians and their works, such that they are forgotten no more. A coalition of local organizations is coming together to complete the project. The land will be donated, broad support is being generated, and fundraising has begun for donations, grants, and in-kind services. The project will provide a high-quality, low-maintenance memorial to be gifted to a responsible civic organization. To learn more about this significant recognition of Peoria history and to contact us to participate or contribute, please visit our website at www.peoriafreedompark.org.